I have always wanted to make this video. It's been years since I've wanted to make these videos for each of my kids. So this is the birth story of our first child. His name's Derek. He's almost 10, so it's been a long time since it happened. So it's kind of hard to remember everything, but what I know, what I remember, I will tell you guys. So I'm gonna start before we got pregnant. So we started trying and we kind of didn't know what we were doing, and it took us about like 6 months to finally get pregnant. So when I found, I'll tell you how I found out I was pregnant. Our dog Piston, we still have him, yes, he was a puppy then, and he got really sick. And like he got the puppy virus is what they called it. It had another name, of course, but they also called it the puppy virus. And we had taken him into the animal hospital, and he was so bad, like ready to die, that they wanted to treat him there. We kept him there overnight, like 2 nights, I think. Anyway, so we dropped him off at the animal hospital, and then my husband had a camp out to go to with the Boy Scouts from church. So this was a Friday night, so he went to the camp out, and that night he said, make sure you go visit Piston at the hospital. So I went to go see him, and as I was holding him, I just started crying, and I'm like, why am I so emotional about this dog? Anyway, yes, he was like our baby, but anyway, it was so weird for me to like be crying. And another symptom that happened before I found out is my breasts hurt so bad on the outside. Like I could not put my arms down, I could not touch, and I was like, what is happening? And I thought, let me take a pregnancy test. And so I went and bought one. I came home, and remember, Cameron isn't even home, so I came home. It was at nighttime urine on the pregnancy test. I took it, and it came out positive, and like it wasn't even a faint line, it was like right there. And I was so excited. I didn't know what to do, and I thought, well, I have to tell Cameron, but I wanted to tell someone right then and there. And Cameron, I'm not gonna call him while he's on the camp out. So I just reached for my phone and I called the bestest friend I had back then, and that was Jessie. And I hadn't even talked to her in a long time. And I called her and I said, I'm pregnant. And I said, I'm sorry, I have to tell someone and I don't know who. And so I called her and I told her, and she was so happy. Anyway, so I prepared, I believe, I didn't take any pictures or anything, but I believe it was like a little shoe box. And I bought baby boy shoes, actually, like tiny newborn size. And I put that in the box, and the pregnancy test. And so when Cameron got home, I showed him the box, and I don't remember him like opening it or his expression. I wish I did. But I remember we were at the table by the kitchen in the house that we were living at that time. And he was sitting down and I was standing up, and oh, that's right, I remember he like realized what it was, and he looked up at me and he just got up and gave me a hug. So anyway, we were so happy. We just couldn't believe it, because I mean, this had been like, we got married and then 3 years passed, or maybe even 3 years, and then we got pregnant. So it had taken us a long time. And anyway, so we were so excited. And you know, I was so sick in the first trimester, and I just remember there was a lot of complications. Not a lot, but it seemed like it. It was just really stressful. I remember I took a blood test or something, and they were like, oh, your baby's high risk for Down syndrome. We need you to come in for an ultrasound, blah, blah, blah. And they're measuring everything. Anyway, and then they finally decided that I should do an amnio to check for sure. Like that's how they would really know what was wrong or whatever. Anyway, this was my first pregnancy. I didn't know anything, and I remember having to do all these NSTs for no reason. I mean, now I see there was no reason. Anyway, so I did get an amnio. That's when they put like a needle through your belly, through your uterus, into the amniotic fluid and suck some of it out. I believe, and that way they know, they can test if the baby had Down syndrome. Anyway, he didn't, and because we did that, we knew 100% sure the gender, because we got it done at 15 weeks. I remember that before it got bigger, before the baby got bigger. And so we found out it was a boy, and we were so excited. So I did ask Cameron, because he's not here right now, but I did ask him to let me know some things that he remembers. And one of the things he said that he remembers is he was really excited that it was going to be a boy as our first child. Anyway, it was just so great, because he was the first, he'd be the first grandbaby in my family, my side of the family. And of course, you know, the first like Campbell baby on his side of the family. So it was a big deal. But anyway, so like I said, I had to do all these non-stress tests, and of course the baby was fine. And then my due date came and no baby. And then a few days later I had an appointment again, and the doctor's like, why are you waiting? Let's get you in. Let's induce you. And of course it was my first baby, so I was like, okay, sure, let's go. So we went in. My due date was July 11th. And so I was past my due date, and we scheduled the induction for July 14th. And the doctor's like, it's your first, so it's going to take forever. You'll probably have it on July 15th. So anyway, so we went in July 14th. It was morning time, like 8 o'clock, I believe. Like I said, this was a long time ago, and I'm trying to remember everything. So they started me off with Cervidil, I believe is what it's called. And I got like 3 doses, and it's supposed to soften your cervix. And I remember, like, yeah, by like the middle of the day, I did start getting some contractions, but they weren't, I mean, yeah, they were painful. Contractions are painful, but they weren't like bad. And then by 5 o'clock, I'm pretty sure they gave me Pitocin. And I'm pretty sure it was by that time, but the contractions started coming really strong. And I mean, this was my first, and so I was like, oh my gosh, this is bad. And then like later it was nighttime. I think it was like 9 o'clock. My friend showed up, Doris. She showed up at the hospital, and so Cameron's there with me, and she shows up, and she's talking to me, right? I'm on the bed, and she's like on the end of the bed, the feet around my feet, and she's talking, you know, we're trying to make conversation, but I just could not concentrate on her. It was so hard because, oh, the contractions were so bad. But she's friends with Cameron too, so they were just talking, and I'm like moaning over here, and oh, and going into this, I did not want an epidural. I did not want to get it. But at this point I was like, is there any other pain relief that I can take? And I'm not sure what it's called. I think they gave me this medicine called Stadol. That's what I remember it being called. And so they gave it to me through the IV. And as soon as it came in, like, I just remember the room spinning, and I was like whimpering as I was moaning with the contractions. And I remember looking at my friend across from me, and I was saying like, oh, it hurts, but I was saying so many things that I could not control. Like, they were just coming out of me. Like, I didn't want to say what I was saying, but it was just coming out. I don't know, it was so weird. So weird. I did not like that medicine. But anyway, it got so bad that I was loopy, and the contractions were so strong. Anyway, the nurse came in a little bit after that, I remember. And I said, this is not helping. And she said, it's supposed to calm you down. But it was not helping the pain at all. And it was not calming me down. I was so, I was so embarrassed that my friend Doris was there watching me. So the nurse came in, right? She said, I'm going to check you and see, that way I can let your doctor know. So she's checking me, and her long nails or something broke my water. I mean, she was wearing gloves, but she punctured it somehow, and she broke my water. And I remember thinking, this was my first, so I remember thinking, now the baby has to come in 24 hours. Like, I was so scared that that happened, and I was so mad at her. And I don't know, I mean, now I would understand, but back then I was so mad. And I did write things down, so I'm looking at my notes. So when my water broke, the contractions got so super strong, and they were like back to back to back. And I said, I can't do it. I want the epidural. And I was so scared to get the epidural, but the contractions were so bad that I didn't even feel the needle, nothing. And it was instant relief. It was the best thing in the whole world. And as soon as it kicked in, I was falling asleep, and I told Cameron, you fall asleep too. And they brought him blankets, and he slept in the corner. Anyway, this whole first day, I should back up and say this whole first day, my mom and my family, they went to SeaWorld. And since my doctor said, oh, it's gonna take more than a day, you'll have the baby on the 15th. So they were like, so they asked me, they said, are we okay to go to SeaWorld? I'm like, yeah, go have fun. I'm just gonna be in the hospital laying down all day. So they were at SeaWorld. And so the next morning, I had rested. So, okay, so I got the epidural. It was like 11 or 12 at night. I just remember, oh, it took forever. It took forever with those bad contractions. And then the anesthesiologist finally came in with the epidural. Anyway, so we slept until like 8 in the morning. I mean, they kept waking me up to take my blood pressure and everything. But Cameron slept, you know, until like 8 o'clock. And I remember my mom finally came in with my sister, and as soon as she walked in the door, I just started crying, like I was seeing someone who understands what I was going through and how bad this is. And my mom had been through something like that, through labors, having us. And so I don't know, I just saw her and I just started crying. I'm like, this is so hard. And so by that day, you know, I had been having an IV hooked up to me all the day before, and so I was so puffy. I was so puffy everywhere, like my legs. I had never seen my legs that puffy. And I mean, this baby was due in July, but I hadn't swelled up that much. So my mom hung out with us, and my dad would come in, and then Rosie was with them too. And I was just exhausted. Like it was horrible. Like, I was not enjoying it, but I had the epidural, and so that was fine. So then at 1 o'clock p.m. they said, okay, you're ready to push. And I had practice pushes with the nurse, and that took forever. And then they finally called the doctor. So I pushed for 2 whole hours. And I don't remember pushing. Oh, I got a fever while I was pushing, and I threw up. And I remember falling asleep in between contractions because I was so exhausted, so tired. And my mom, she wasn't allowed in the room, or I think it was me. I said, no, I just want Cameron. So she was right outside the door with my sister, and they could hear them counting that whole time. They were just, you know, counting 1, 2 to 10. And anyway, so I was falling asleep in between contractions, and I had a fever. And then he finally came out at 3:59 p.m. Oh no, I must have started pushing at 2, because it was 2 hours. It took 2 hours to push him out. And anyway, he came out, and oh my gosh, I was so happy. I did get an episiotomy, but I had the epidural, so I didn't feel anything. And he was so cute. He was the cutest baby I had ever seen in my whole life. And Cameron also said something about that. His first cry was so tender. And so when he was on my chest, he smiled, and we both saw it. Oh, I forgot to mention, he did say the delivery was super long and very boring. It was so long. But so when he came out, like, you know, they put him on me, and he, for the longest time, he only had one eye open. Like, he could not open the other one. It was so funny. But he weighed 6'14". yeah, he weighed 6'14". I don't remember the length. I don't ever like pay attention to lengths. But oh, he was so cute, and they put a little beanie on him, right? But I lifted it up and I was like, oh, he has blonde hair. And I mean, to a blonde person it probably wasn't blonde, but to me, like, I could not believe that he had blonde hair. And anyway, my parents finally came in after. Oh, I threw up after I delivered him too. Oh my gosh, and I still had a fever. So they had to check on Derek too, because we named him Derek, and they had to check on him too because he might have had a fever too, since he was in my warm body. So anyway, I just don't, I mean, those are little things that I remember. I remember my dad coming in and holding his first grandson, and it was like so sweet, and my mom too. But when my dad was holding him, he lifted up his beanie and he was kind of like by the window, so the sun was coming in, and he's like, oh my gosh, he's got blonde hair. And everybody in my family was so happy that he had blonde hair. The nurse that I had while pushing, like that day that he was born, she was fantastic. She was amazing, and I always remember her because if I had a question, I asked her and she told me the answer, and she just made everything seem like you're gonna be okay, everything's gonna be fine. Since I did have the epidural, for some reason this epidural did not wear off for like another 4 hours after, and I remember them having to wheel me in this like funny looking wheelchair over to the recovery room, the postpartum room, I guess. And they were so strict about like mommy and baby time and when the dad could be there, and Cameron wasn't able to spend the night. But anyway, the recovering was so hard, and I think it was because of the epidural, I don't know, but it was such a hard recovery. Like, I just felt like I had been hit by a train. But the first night with Derek, Cameron had to go home, and I was just awake with him the whole time, and it was just so sweet. Like, he would just look up at me, and I will always remember that. That's one thing that I do like remember as if I was there right now. The delivery is kind of like hazy, but those are the things I do remember. And so that was pretty much it for him. I did have a hard time, like, he didn't have a hard time latching on, but I didn't know if he was getting enough milk, and so breastfeeding was kind of messy. Like, I would get really frustrated, and so I did go to a lactation office, or I don't know what they call it, but where they weigh the baby, you feed him, and then they weigh him again, and he got plenty of milk. And so anyway, he was fine. I did use cloth diapers for him, and anyway, he was just so cute. I just want to see if there's anything else I should add. Anyway, but that's the story, the birth story of Derek. He is now 10 years old, and he's a big boy. But I figured that I would talk about these birth stories, so I have them for my record, from my family history, and that way when Derek is older, he can look back and be like, oh my gosh, that's how it was when I was born. And anyway, so if you are still here, thank you for hanging out and watching with us. I know this is not my usual videos that I make. I don't do sit down videos. I just vlog, and it's simple, like home video vlogging. So anyway, I just thought that every once in a while I would do one of the birth stories, including my miscarriage, because I don't think I've ever talked about that. So I am pregnant right now. This is my 6th child, 7th pregnancy, and so I thought I would talk about all of them. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.